It's actually kind of funny to go on stage after a conversation about what makes a good entrepreneur. And I'm supposed to speak about how good an entrepreneur I am. But let's start at a different end. It's the 2nd of July, 2013, and Motoyoshi Kimura from Japan wakes up with a terrible headache. He has been drinking the whole night. In fact, he has been drinking every night for the past 1.5 months. He used to be a manager at Mitsubishi, but he got fired a 1.5 months ago, and when his wife discovered, she left him. And today he has a weird feeling, a weird, bad feeling that something bad is going to happen. Motoyoshi brushes his teeth, grabs a coffee and leaves the house and never comes back. Because around 3 a.m. in the morning, he was drunk and he was hit by a train and he died. And the worst thing about this story is that he wasn't alone. There were 221 drunks who died in Japan being run over by a train in 2013. And it was becoming a big issue for the West Japan Railway Company. And they thought, we need to tackle this somehow. And so they started investigating. They went to find out what's actually happening on those platforms. Why are these people dying? And their hypothesis was that as the drunk person is waiting for the train, is walking up and down on the platform and slowly drifts towards the edge and falls on the rails. So that was the hypothesis, but fortunately, they decided to watch hundreds of hours of CCTV recordings. And what they found out was that only in about 10% of cases, it happened as I just described. And there was a much different pattern when it comes to the other 90%. So what was happening? And what they discovered was that the pattern was as follows. The person was sitting on the bench, waiting for the train, half asleep. And as the train was announced, the person jumped up, started walking, and fell on the rails. So they started thinking, can we use this insight to find a solution? And what they came up with was, when I first heard about it, mind-blowing. What they did was they turned the benches by 90 degrees. Now as the person stood up and started walking, he or she wouldn't walk on the rails, but would walk on the platform. And eventually hundreds of lives were solved by turning the benches by 90 degrees. Let's now switch gears a little bit. Let's hear a story about Andrew Holland, who's a freelance copywriter who lives in New York and goes on business trips to Houston. This is the year 2012, and Andrew just landed on the Houston airport. He's a little bit anxious because he's about to meet this new client for the first time, and he gets out of the plane, walks towards the baggage carousels, and gets there and waits. So he waits for 2 minutes, he waits for 3 minutes, and he's becoming a little bit stressed out. So why the hell is it taking so long? I managed to get here in 2 minutes. Why is it taking so long for my suitcase? And the time goes on, he still doesn't get his suitcase, and he's so pissed that he decides to file a complaint. It ends up well, so he's on time to the client's meeting. The meeting ends up well, and he returns back home. But the complaint was submitted. And then half a year later, Andrew goes on the same business trip. He takes the same plane and remembers his experience. And he starts thinking, so let's see if they did something about it. And as Andrew is getting off the plane, he walks to the baggage carousels and is expecting to wait forever. But actually the suitcase comes within 1 or 2 minutes from when he gets there. So he thinks, okay, it's not always a bad idea to complain. But he doesn't know that the management of the airport has been working on a solution long before he filed a complaint. They actually discovered that so many people were frustrated about long waiting. So they hired more staff, they tried to shorten the process, and they managed to squeeze it to 8 minutes. 8 minutes from the moment the suitcase gets off the plane until it lands on the baggage carousel. But the thing is that people kept complaining. Even though the 8 minutes were way below the average of other airports, people would still complain. And they were a little bit confused, and they thought, okay, so let's try to look at it from a different perspective. And they tried to look at not at what's happening with the suitcase, but they tried to look at what's happening with the passenger from the moment he gets off the plane until the moment he collects the suitcase. And one day, what they found out was that out of the 8 minutes, the person would only walk for about 1 minute and would be standing around being bored for 7 minutes. And the solution they designed was, once again, ingenious. They simply moved the problematic flights to gates which were further away, so that people would now walk for 7 minutes and wait for only 1 minute. And the number of complaints went down to nearly 0. So what do these two stories have in common? What they have in common is that the solutions don't make rational sense. And very often, actually, very often, not everything that works makes sense, and not everything that makes sense works. And when I first heard about this, I got hooked. I got hooked onto the fact that the majority of decisions happen subconsciously. And so how can you discover a little bit more about it? Well, there's a science dedicated to studying what's actually happening in our subconscious minds. And that's behavioral economics. Behavioral economics is a science about people's perceptions, decisions, and behaviors. It gives us the tools to understand, predict, and influence people's decisions. And I first came across the subject around 10, 11 years ago. I was at the time studying actuarial mathematics in Copenhagen. And I just came across a book. The book was called Predictably Irrational. I read the book and I was instantly in love with the topic. And the next 5 or 6 years, I spent reading all I could about the topic, learning all I could about the topic. I finished my studies, got a corporate job, and 3 years in the job, I quit, and I founded a consultancy, MINDWORX, which focuses on helping clients and companies use all the fascinating insights from behavioral science in marketing and sales. I mean, in brief, what we do is that we advise our clients on what to say and how to say it so that it works. We then launched an online masterclass around 3 years ago with the biggest names from the field. And the feedback we were getting was, I mean, we love it. We love all the examples of the practical applications. Can you bring us more of those? So we launched another project a couple of months ago, insidebe.com, which is all about how can you, as an entrepreneur, as a business person, use these insights in your business. But I don't want to talk about behavioral economics in general, about what we do, because I hate the kind of presentations where you don't learn anything. And I was thinking, which insight from consumer psychology or behavioral science should I tell you about which might actually make an impact? And I thought there is one. There's one which I think is by far the most important. But let me ask you something. Have you ever pushed a car? Put your hand up if you've ever pushed a car. Well, the majority of people have pushed a car. So imagine the following scenario. You're pushing a car, you still have around 50 meters to go, and it's going well. So you're pushing in it advances, and suddenly it stops. So what can you do? I mean, there are basically two things you could do. So you can either ask around and get people to come and help you. So you ask the first person, they come in, they start pushing with you. It doesn't work. You ask a second, a third, a fourth person, they come in, they help you, and eventually get over the rock, and you keep pushing it. Or the more clever way might actually be to have a look if there's not a rock under the wheel, take it away and push the car yourself. Now, why am I talking about pushing cars? It's because this is a beautiful metaphor for human behavior. When you think about the last time you went to persuade someone, when you think about what companies do when they communicate to their customers, it's all about increasing their motivation, right? So they try to create a good deal, to give you a discount, to create a special offer, to give you a gift, so that you buy, so that you click. But the truth is that behavior actually has two components. On the one hand, it's motivation. I must be quite motivated to do something. But the second component, which is so much more important, are the rocks under the wheel, are all kind of barriers that stand in the way. And it's not necessarily that the process is very complicated. It's not necessarily that I can't do it. It might be that I'm a little bit afraid, I'm a little bit unsure. It feels complicated. And I want to tell you now about a couple of case studies, and these are basically case studies all from Inside BE that either we have done or have been done by other top experts across the globe. This is our own thing. We were asked by an insurance company to help them redesign a direct email campaign, which was offering their clients a free travel insurance for 1 year. So it's a free product. It makes all the sense in the world to actually take it and make use of it. But people didn't give a damn. The conversions were, well, close to zero. So we came in and we looked at it. Obviously, it wasn't a question of a lack of motivation, giving you something for free. You should be motivated enough to get a product which is free and which is good. So we focused on the barriers. What might be holding people back? And we discovered there was one thing that people were afraid of. And that was that they would forget to cancel their free travel insurance after the free year expires. And so the solution was quite simple. We wrote in the email, no worries, you won't forget because we'll remind you well in advance. We tested it, and the conversions went up threefold. Another case study was about redesigning a job ad. So another company was struggling with attracting candidates to their company. And so we looked at their job ad, and we didn't describe the company or describe the job in more favorable terms. We looked at, once again, what is it that's holding people back? Why is it that people don't apply for the job? And what we found out was that people were actually overwhelmed by all the information that was inside the job ad. So the solution, once again, was simple. Let's remove half of the information and let's restructure it a little bit. We tested it, and the amount of job ads we received was 3 times as high as with the old ad. Not a question of a lack of motivation. It was a question of barriers and reasons that were discouraging people from acting. The same is true for a bank that reduced churn by 11%. And this is a beautiful case study by Simon Moore and Innovation Bubble from the UK. First, the bank was trying to create new apps and create new offering for their clients so that they're more happy and they stay. Until they found out that the reason these people were leaving was crucial concerns and anxiety that customers were experiencing because of the communication of the bank. They changed the communication and the churn went down by 11%. And the last case study is about redesigning a restaurant menu. Once again, here the goal was to increase average sales per person. And the truth is that, once again, they didn't add fancy meals. They didn't lower prices. What they did was that they removed half of the menu. They highlighted the starters, the desserts. They changed the description of the meals a little bit. And they managed to significantly increase how much people would spend per visit in the restaurant. Once again, not a question of a lack of motivation. When I go to a restaurant, I'm motivated enough, I'm hungry enough, I want to eat. But if I don't buy, it's because there's something which is discouraging me from buying. And before I somehow conclude, if you like these case studies, then go to Inside BE and in the chat window, write reflect. My colleagues are waiting for you and they have a surprise for you. So go to insidebe.com and to reflect anytime during today in the evening, maybe also tomorrow, and you'll see what's waiting for you there. But my main message here, my main point, and it doesn't matter if you're trying to sell, if you're trying to persuade someone, is that your first reaction, your first reflect should not be to try to motivate the person. Because very often it is not a problem of motivation. Very often the reason why people are not doing what you want them to do is because there is something standing in the way. It can be a fear of something, it can be a shame, it can be all kinds of psychological barriers which hold them back. Discover what those barriers are, remove those barriers, and you'll see that you will be much more persuasive. Your customers will start doing what you want them to do. Your loved ones will start doing what you would love them to do. So don't focus on how to motivate people. Look for the barriers that are holding them back. This is my main message. Thank you so much for the attention. And if you'd like to speak with me, I'll be waiting here. Happy to talk behavioral economics, consumer psychology, and how it could help your business, your life to do better. Thanks a lot.